Live from SABC headquarters in Auckland Park, Johannesburg. Welcome to this Tuesday edition of the Watchdog. My name is Vuyo Mvogo, and on the show tonight,
the branches of the ANC in KwaZulu-Natal are proposing that in the position of a president, they support Dr. Zwelini Lawrence Mkhize.
President Zwelini Lawrence Mkhize? Well, certainly. If the ANC in his home province of KwaZulu-Natal has its way. Tonight we look at his rise, fall, and rise again. This on the same day, the party's former president, Jacob Zuma, declares he's available for the position of party chairperson, but with Dr. Nkosazana Dlamini Zuma right at the top of his slate as his preferred candidate for president. And on the electricity crisis, the government today confirming the looming shake-up of the Eskom board in what it believes will go a long way in addressing the country's electricity crisis. All that and more in tonight's episode of The Watchdog, which starts now. Well, the ANC in KwaZulu-Natal has thrown down the gauntlet. Zwelini Lawrence Mkhize it is for them, and they hope to persuade other provinces to back their candidate. The KZN slate suggests they may get some support from Gauteng. The province's strongman, that is current ANC Treasurer General Paul Mashatile, features on the list as their deputy presidential candidate. Limpopo is another province KZN may convince after listing its chairperson Stan Matabata as their preferred candidate for national chairperson. Phumulo Maswale, the former Eastern Cape chairperson, features as a candidate for the post of Secretary General. And another Gautenger, Nomvula Mokwanyane, is being proposed for the post of Deputy Secretary General, while another woman would be preferred as the party's Treasurer General, but the province of KwaZulu-Natal is not sure yet as to who that person might be and where they may come from. As is often the case with these things, they are going to engage with other provinces and structures to arrive at a consensus name. But those are the names that have settled on up until now. But who is Mkhize? Some of you may ask. Well, he was born on the 2nd of February, 1956 in Pietermaritzburg. He is the 5th of 7 children. He completed his degree in medicine at the University of Natal at the age of 26. And that's before he went into exile in Swaziland and later settled in Zimbabwe. He returned to South Africa in 1991. Years later, occupying the roles of KZN MEC for Economic Affairs and then Premier. He gained national prominence after becoming ANC Treasurer General, after that Cooperative Governance and Traditional Affairs Minister, before landing the health portfolio that saw him lead the country's response to the COVID-19 pandemic, which, of course, is the post, as many of you would know, that actually landed him in hot water. This is after there were allegations that he and people close to him, including someone who ran his campaign, as well as his son, mentioned among people who may have unduly benefited from a COVID-19 pandemic tender. Of course, as many of you would know, Dr. Mkhize was the face and voice of the country's fight against the COVID-19. And on the back of the allegations, he then resigned, and he has been absent from government since. Not too long ago, I did have a sit down with the head of the Special Investigations Unit. While Dr. Mkhize, of course, maintains his innocence, the Special Investigations Unit begs to differ. Take a listen to how that interview with Advocate Andy Mutibi went on the day he came on the program to talk about the Digital Vibes saga and what they are doing about it to bring those who may have been involved in the allegations of corruption and maladministration to book. So it was the minister who actually instructed the departmental officials to contract these people.
Look, that's what we make a finding in the report, because the way we found, there's evidence that demonstrated to us that from the onset, when the budgets were signed, right, for this communication for COVID, as would be expected of the executive authority, which is the political head of a department and the former minister in this case, right? When he would be given, as it was the practice in the department, to table the budgets with the minister to sign off and approve, in that approval, there was the way the company Digital Vibe. So the evidence points out that the minister approved the budget for the work to be granted to Digital Vibe. And for us, in terms of the law and the policies and the Public Finance Management Act, it's wrong to do that.
For the minister to sign off on such contracts.
Yeah, on the budget with the name of the service provider. Because remember, signing the budget, which in principle could really be nothing wrong, because the executive authority has to make sure that there's sufficient budget, to execute on policy initiatives and so on. But in this regard, in this case, the budget was put to the minister to approve with the name of Digital Vibe there. So our view is, with the evidence that we have collected that the minister was aware of this Digital Vibe, particularly even in the report we say that he had prior knowledge of this company from the Department of Cocta. So once he signed that, there is a further evidence that shows, and your point, and we make that point in the report, that the communication that he sent by WhatsApp to the then Director General to say, sort out the contract, right? That kind of language indicates that there's some process that was not followed. You just had to sort out the contract, right? And for us, it's problematic because in that case there is a clear demonstration that there was no anticipation or an envisaged SCM process to be followed.
Now, add to that the fact that there was a rival bidder in terms of the information that you got, who were prepared to do this job for less than half what Digital Vibes was asking. What was the department's, tender committee response when you put that to them? That how do you justify, enlisting the services of a bidder that is asking for more than twice the price?
For you, that's one of the other parts of our findings. That was on the part of the department, including those who sat on the bid committee. It was inexplicable. And remember, the outcome of those committees is the outcome of members who are sitting on those committees and giving scores, right? So our finding was that some of those members who sat on those committees, right, deliberately granted higher scores to digital vibes, unjustifiably. Because if you look at the evidence that we have produced, or the report, it actually says digital vibe, by the time that it was granted the business, it had only 1 year of almost relevant experience. The rival, which we mentioned in the report, which is Branswell, which we found that it had several years experience, and we went through meticulously on members of each companies, right? On this other rival company, we found that they had such wealth of experience related to the business that the department wanted to be executed. So it really indicated to us that there was a measure of manipulation of the process, including in the bid committee itself, so that digital vibes could deliberately score high over and above the rival company that we mentioned in the report. So to your question, it was inexplicable on the part of the department. There's just no explanation.
Wow. Advocate Andy Mutibi there on the program some months ago explaining the whole digital vibes saga. Why is this important? It is because it's what could stand between Dr. Zweli Mkhize and being president of the ANC. How would that happen? Well, the ANC's own, the step-aside rule that is currently in force says if anyone is charged, then they are not, they can't be allowed to stand for the positions, for leadership positions in the ANC. So if between now and December he could be charged, it then means that his candidacy falls away. Hence, we brought you this interview. And earlier, of course, we brought you a bit about who Dr. Mkhize is. And before then, we told you what the ANC in KwaZulu-Natal, which is the first province to pronounce in greater detail as to who it is that they want to lead the ANC. This, of course, the pronouncements were made this morning at a media briefing. After this short break, we're going to now look at what Dr. Mkhize's candidacy could mean for the incumbent, and that's President Cyril Ramaphosa, but what it could also mean for the other contender, and that's Dr. Nkosazana Dlamini-Zuma, who has thrown her hat in the ring. And as many of you would know by now, former President Jacob Zuma has thrown his weight behind Dr. Nkosazana Dlamini-Zuma's candidacy. To help us answer those questions and a lot more, I am going to be joined by guests, both of whom have written books about the ANC. That's coming up after this short break. Don't go away. Welcome back, and if you just joined us, the province of KwaZulu-Natal, the ANC that is, in that province pronounced today and said Dr. Zweli Mkhize is their preferred candidate to challenge incumbent President Cyril Ramaphosa. And what we're asking now in this segment is what this could mean, for the incumbent, Ramaphosa, what it could also mean for the other contender, Dr. Nkosazana Dlamini-Zuma. And to help us answer those questions and a lot more, with me in studio, I do have Mpumelelo Mkhabela, who is a former political editor and author of the book, The Enemy Within, How the ANC Lost the Battle Against Corruption. And on the line, I have Professor Susan Boyson, an academic and political analyst and author of the book, Dominance and Decline, the ANC in the Time of Zuma. Let me greet you. Let me greet both of you, and thank you so much for agreeing to come on the program.
Good evening.
Good evening.
Thank you.
Of course, today's pronouncements, don't make Dr. Mkhize's nomination a done deal, Professor Boyson. The incumbent probably remains the strongest candidate as things stand, pending other processes or other people pronouncing, other structures pronouncing, and so on.
Yes, indeed, for your today's moves, significant, definitely as they are. And they are very important moves in a prolonged chess game political chess game that's going to go on for at least another 3 months.
Okay, she's frozen. We basically had what Prof had to say, that definitely, it doesn't mean that this is a done deal. A lot more. A lot is going to happen over the next a few months, considering also that's not only the incumbent. You have Dr. Nkosazana Dlamini Zuma having thrown a hat in the ring, and this morning, after midnight, we did, get that 4-page letter that also effectively endorses her as the former president, Jacob Zuma's preferred candidate for the position of president.
Well, I guess it's one of those things that the former president, Thabo Mbeki, himself not stranger to this type of competition for positions, said recently at the funeral when he said, during elective conferences of the ANC, you have people that he calls Bondiketeni. So I think, the Zuma announcement that, he's available for a position in the top 6 is one of those things where people just come out and say, I think I can lead. But on a more serious note for you, you asked earlier, what does it all mean? I think the way to look at it is this. The people that are nominating someone like Mkhize, Nkosazana Dlamini Zuma, or Jacob Zuma, what do they think about themselves, first of all, and about the party they represent? What do they make of it? It says something. They are communicating something. And the people who make themselves available for this type of nominations, they say something about what they think of the ANC, first of all, and what they think of themselves and what they think of the country. And the delegates, eventually, who will decide, the 4,000 and something delegates who will decide in December, whatever decision they make, they'll be communicating a message. Let's pick on Mkhize, for example. What kind of message are the people nominating Mkhize saying? The PEC of KwaZulu-Natal and other regions. They are communicating a message that the renewal project that the ANC has been talking about for years is basically meaningless. It means nothing to them. Because the renewal project talks about, getting people into positions who have high moral ground. People who represent what the ANC calls the moral renewal, revolutionary morality, people who would not be corrupt. I remember very well in the 2007 conference, one of the key documents of the ANC that it calls strategy and tactics document. There's a section there about the importance of leaders wherever they are. That's the ANC's language, whether in the party or outside, anywhere in society, wherever they are, members of the ANC have to be exemplary in their conduct. Now, if you look at Mkhize's conduct while he was in the cabinet as health minister, never mind everything good that he might have done, but in the end, he undermined all of that with his involvement in corruption. Directly or indirectly, his family benefited from dodgy deals, digital vibes, and all of that. And this is somebody who was, as a result of that scandal, forced to leave cabinet. And he's in court at the moment trying to challenge those allegations, which, from where we sit as members of the public, are very strong allegations, very difficult to refute. He has not been charged, but the process to recover the money from his family and some of his associates clearly shows criminal intent in the entire scheme.
Well, so he's adamant he didn't do anything. In fact, all of this is what we're seeing, what is at play here is state law enforcement agencies being used to fight factional ANC battles. And it was interesting that the ANC PEC spokespeople who made the pronouncements this morning just said as much. They went further, in fact, to even say that the fact that these cases are taking too long means they can only be meant, or something to that effect, to actually block people like Dr. Mkhize from ascending.
Well, interestingly, that's a view also held by Nkosazana Zuma when he discussed a few days ago the whole controversy around step aside. So again, we're back to my issue that the ANC makes these resolutions, and it uses these resolutions to say to the public, trust us. We're still as good as the old liberation movement that sacrificed our lives for you to be free. But hang on a bit. Are they worthy to be trusted if they are violating their own resolutions? I mean, there was a reason why the step-aside resolution was introduced. It was basically to win what clearly is waning public trust on the ANC. And, they said, okay, fine, people that are suspected to be corrupt or people that are facing charges, serious charges, should step aside until they are cleared. But now that there's a conference coming up, the step-aside resolution suddenly doesn't matter. And I can tell you, somebody will go in that conference, having fought against step aside. They will make a speech at that conference after being elected, or even before they're elected, to say, we are here, we are fighting corruption, we are very serious about corruption.
In fact, take a listen to what Dr. Nkosazana Dlamini Zuma had to say to our team. Samkele Maseko spoke to her at the weekend about this very same matter.
On the question of step aside, I think for me, where the problem lies is that the country's laws, the law of the land, says you are innocent until proved guilty, right? That's the law of the land. Then the law of the ANC almost says we are guilty until proved innocent. But even that step aside, the problem with it is that you step aside, you are charged, you step aside. 3 years on, you still haven't started, the trial hasn't started. What is that? What kind of justice is that? Because justice should be, they investigate you. Once they've charged you, the trial must start within months. So it's not justice when you can wait for years, even before the trial starts. So why were you charged? What were you charged for? If 3 years on or 2 years on, you still haven't started the trial. For instance, I think for me that is injustice. There is a comrade, I'll make an example of, I won't name, but a comrade was recalled from his post because he was charged. He was here for 3 years going to court just to postpone, until the judge threw the matter out because it was clear there was no case. So is that justice? For me, that's a big problem in all this. Because if it's fair and just, charge, get on with the trial, get the person to be cleared or to be found guilty, then that's justice. And the ANC must stand for justice. The ANC must stand for justice because if it's done like this, that's what exacerbates suspicions and divisions, and people think, well, this is something that's done to remove people.
Professor Poyson, I believe we do have you back after you were load shared. I wanted to ask you whether, do you think Dr. Dlamini Zuma believes what she just said around the step-aside rule?
Well, I think she's very opportunistic, pragmatic, probably in this regard, because she is definitely not one of the voices that we've heard has been critical and vocal in, for example, the ANC's National Executive Committee meetings when those debates were conducted about the step aside. her voice. Perhaps she was active in the debate, but it was certainly not one that emerged afterwards. And so she seems to be a new convert to this way of thinking, and that can only be opportunistic, and that also definitely has to be linked to the fact that our former patron, Jacob Zuma, continuous patron now, he is certainly in this camp, and she tries to defend it too, and she tries to put it in this context that he is probably a victim of that, and several others possibly too. But in the case of Jacob Zuma, he's certainly the one who has been playing the multiple postponement game. But this is a way of mobilization in this new ANC. This is a new type of ANC that we see emerging. It's an ANC that has moved past that fleeting moment of clean up, new dawnism of Cyril Ramaphosa, and that imploded around him, also around the Pala matter. There certainly are no charges there, but it's certainly very suspicious that the silences are just so prolonged, and that the law takes a very, very long course in that case. And that was a great equalizer in this game. And it is different types of charges, but there is doubts and possible legal procedures hanging over the heads of several of these people, and certainly over the heads of the two main contenders, which now are, besides Cyril Ramaphosa, Mkhize. I wouldn't count in the course of Zuma as a major contender, because also as KwaZulu-Natal, a political executive said today of the ANC, and that there is overwhelming majority support in the province for this. And that is, of course, another rule that is being played there, whether provinces can pronounce or not.
But do you think, Prof, it's going to put her in good stead? Certainly, from those people who previously supported her, but who later felt that, she wasn't one of them. After the previous NASREC conference. But do you think what she was saying, what she said this past weekend to our politics team will now change, the minds of those who previously supported her, but who no longer think that she is their candidate? Hence, many of them are now throwing their weight behind Dr. Mkhize.
I certainly think it will help her absolutely zero nothing. It is way too late, and she has been way too inconsistent, and she is certainly has not been known in the past few years, since 2018 and since 2019 elections. In this period, she has not been a critic of the Ramaphosa camp. She was completely enfolded in that camp, and she enjoyed the benefits and enjoyed that position very much. So this is a strange, almost pathetic, sorry, but that is the word that comes to mind, a pathetic attempt to enter the race, in a race where she is not in that league. She has not been positioning herself in that way at all. So it is a kind of afterthought, footnote candidacy, which I really do not believe will go anywhere.
Let's go to the other presidential candidate, and that's incumbent Cyril Ramaphosa. Considering the fact that, one, he won by, 179 votes last time, and secondly, he's a lot more vulnerable now. Hence, KZN could boldly come out and say, but he hasn't done much, if anything, about the things that matter to our people, like electricity, for example. And then there's the Pala saga, perceived, weakness, that whatever might of the state he may have or may have had, it amounts to nothing, considering all things considered. How beatable is he this time around?
I would say President Ramaphosa is a very lucky politician, in a sense that he hasn't done much as president of the country that is remarkable for us to say, or even ANC people to say, he's the greatest leader or you're one of the best leaders they have. But he is lucky in a sense that he doesn't get good challengers, people who could like potentially challenge him successfully, and people that are convincing to the ANC, and people that, which brings me to the second point, that one of the reasons why I think he's lucky is that when consideration is made at the moment for a presidential candidate for the ANC, most party structures, or at least the top level of the leadership in the provinces, they are calculating who is best placed, at least relatively, to give us a 50+1 come 2024. That's the calculation that's being made. And that calculation, I think, gives Ramaphosa the edge a little bit ahead of any other person who can try to contest him. And that's because there isn't anybody who has come forth who could convincingly say, I can give the party a 50+1. I am not saying that Ramaphosa is guaranteed to get it. He himself might struggle. But out of all the people that are there, he is better placed to try to give the ANC a chance than, say, Nkosi Dlamini Zuma, who might, in my opinion, might see the ANC crash completely, especially if in a slate that includes people like, Mkhize, or, anyone who is implicated in corruption. Because over the period, since 2007, when Zuma became president, people kind of like have seen through this kind of strategy of playing victim on issue of corruption, playing victim when you have been charged, accusing the criminal justice system for being manipulated, like Nkosi Dlamini Zuma was trying to say, and crying foul, and thinking that the public or ANC members will sympathize with you. Yes, they will sympathize with you to a certain extent, but over the period, people have made a judgment that actually it may well be true, allegations against you may well be true. It may well be true that there was no manipulation. I mean, Zuma was president, but the Amstel allegations didn't go away, despite all of the powers that he had as president, simply because there are factual things that he needs to answer for, and the court needs to pronounce to clear him or find him guilty. But there is a case for him to go to court and answer for. So you can't use these kinds of things now and say, yeah, well, processes can be manipulated. So Ramaphosa's trip here could be pala-pala, which explains why he's dragging his feet on answering, because I think he's scared that should he give too much answers to Parliament, and maybe the answers are not exactly the same as what he's giving to the law enforcement authorities, the gaps might be there where the truth lie, and that's where he may well be implicated in a criminal matter or in an investigation that has got criminal charges potential. So, and that might actually require him to step aside. So all of these delays, I think it's calculating to say he needs to get to December and let people discover the truth maybe afterwards.
Well, the question is perhaps whether he too would actually get to December in the same way that potentially, at least, Dr. Mkhize could also, or may also not get to December if someone decides to charge him. But I want both of you to take a listen to what parliamentarians had to say today, actually, about what they hope or intend doing. My colleague Abra Babia has that story about what opposition parties in particular would like to do around Pala-Pala.
Say it's not only President Ramaphosa who has a case to answer for, but also state institutions and entities who may have been involved in trying to cover up the 2020 robbery at his farm. The bulk of the opposition parties likened the current matter to the Nkandla saga, where millions in taxpayers' money was siphoned off toward former President Jacob Zuma's Nkandla homestead, after which Parliament was found guilty of failing to hold Zuma to account.
Had lessons been learnt and true introspection taken place, the ANC would not be treating Parliament with disdain like it is today. The government party has done a poor job of defending the indefensible. They have sought to conflate the work of the Section 89 inquiry and that of an ad hoc committee. They have pretzeled themselves explaining how law enforcement agencies are investigating the matter as to argue why Parliament must sit on its hands.
We should be very worried that the gains we worked hard for in the 5th Parliament are being destroyed. When the EFF arrived in Parliament, we found people sleeping, eating sandwiches, playing games on their phones, and having a good time while the corrupt and incompetent ruling party did its thing.
Why did the president of the country have such a large amount of money in cash in his possession? Why was the theft not reported? There are more unanswered questions surrounding the matter.
You are once again going to say sorry to the nation for not preventing and not acting when there were allegations made, and let us again learn from what happened as early as 2009 when the first allegations of Gupta state capture were made and it was ignored by the ANC.
President Ramaphosa has a case to answer, and he must answer to the National Assembly.
There is still no case number, which is another violation. What we are saying as African Transformation Movement chairperson, ATM supports the establishment of the ad hoc committee so that the site visit to Pala Farm can be undertaken. Also to summon all the agencies that have been seized with investigating, in particular, criminal activities.
I think the nation as a whole, chairperson, is getting a bit impatient and frustrated that this particular investigation is taking a long time. And more importantly, they are suspicious that there must be or could be some level of interference as a result of which, we are not getting enough information.
It will be unfair to undermine any oversight mechanism preferred by Parliament unless it can be shown that is less effective in achieving accountability.
Good and the ANC rejected the establishment of an ad hoc committee, with the ANC saying it is the president who was a victim of crime, adding that the matter is currently being investigated.
If, as the DA allege, there are departments or entities who can be proven to have been complicit in covering up the theft, then we have portfolio committees who can make a determination in this regard as part of their oversight responsibilities. In addition, questions to the executive committee can be placed. This is an allegation they have to take note of if it has been made formally to the committees.
What's at stake is of far too much consequence to be reduced to a political plaything. Parliament must deal with evidence of wrongdoing, if there is any, when those who are constitutionally mandated to conduct such investigations have done their work. That is our job.
A vote on the matter will be taken on Wednesday during a full sitting of the House. Abra Barbia, SABC News, Parliament.
Well, Prof, if judging by the things that were said there and who was for or against this idea, it would seem that the majority will actually vote against this. But of course, as previous experience has shown, your opposition parties may have avenues. They may decide to go to the courts, for example, where in the past, things have moved, things changed. The ANC was won. Well, not won, but because people went to court and won, then the opposition won. One wonders if that was to happen, Prof. Let's say they look at alternative means of achieving what they probably won't achieve tomorrow in Parliament. Do you think that Pala would be a game changer in the same way that Nkandla was?
I think Pala is already a game changer. Not in the same way as Nkandla and former President Zuma's lack of accountability there and the way he was supported in Parliament, but in different ways. And the way that we already see Pala playing out as a serious game changer was exactly in the developments in KwaZulu-Natal today, where a person with certain question marks behind him although not charges, Zweli Mkhize, could be brought in as a serious candidate and probably a serious contender, because Phala had so severely weakened President Ramaphosa and his credibility, and the recognition within his own party that he is not necessarily the person who can take them to any chance of an improved electoral majority or at least a credible performance in future, that charm of the Ramaphosa era had really fallen away. So irrespective really of whether Ramaphosa still manages to retain the support of the majority in this parliamentary committee, this is already taken a toll. And the political reality that we see today in this phase of development of Phala is a very different game from where it was before the 1st of June charges were brought by Alfred Fraser against Ramaphosa. So we already see the consequences, and it's a very changed reality.
Do you share Mpumelele's view, Prof, that people are looking for a candidate or whoever may be the ANC president come December with their eyes firmly on 2024? In other words, who will give the ANC that 50+1 that it needs to continue governing?
Indeed, that is a serious consideration. But the way things are going and these two candidates stand, I really do not think either Ramaphosa or Mkhize has got it to bring that kind of improved performance electorally, because the candidates that we see with their serious weaknesses all around are really a testimony to what the kind of ANC that we see existing today, the party as is. The best candidates available for the presidency have all got baggage. They cannot, in an innocent renewal kind of way with credibility, like Ramaphosa could still say in 2018, they cannot go to the electorate with that kind of credibility. That is water under the bridge that has been eclipsed. So that is irrespective of which candidate the ANC chooses amongst these two, or even, we do not know, we do not envisage at this stage further presidential candidates coming in for the ANC's position. But there isn't at this stage one that can really resuscitate that type of credibility in ANC to make the electorate believe that this is a party that can be trusted to clean up government and to renew itself. That kind of innocence has been lost totally in South African politics. So it is a new kind of ANC. Perhaps it can still survive electorally if it comes with another persuasive, I don't know how they will manage that, but it would have to be incredibly persuasive, that new tranche of leaders are really what it will really bring to the table, what it will take to bring a new hope and new visions to the country. But so far, we do not see evidence of that in ANC. Instead, as we saw at policy conference at the end of July, it was a really almost a lifeless ANC that was reciting certain positions, trying to infuse hope into narratives and policy programs of government, but really not managing that. And it was that kind of reality that also is motivating ANC's internal opponents to Ramaphosa to say that there has to be a better alternative within the party. But so far, we do not see evidence of that being brought in.
Of course, I mean, elective conferences are completely different from, policy conferences, whatever assumptions were made or whatever a sort of unity may have been projected there. An elective conference may throw up quite a number of things, and old rivalries may resurface, but also because some of these things are about people's lives and future in that organization, but also how they then extend to the personal and other areas of our lives. But I believe we have a few people watching who actually want to be or are part of this conversation as well. Let's see what some of them have to say, in particular about the man we're talking about today, which is what this conversation about, and that is Dr. Zweli Mkhize, with the province of KwaZulu-Natal announcing this morning that he is their preferred man for the position of president of the ANC. Bramoro says he might be famous in KZN, but can the Natal fame send him to the Union Building? The people of Mangaung and Free State are closely monitoring the situation. Good evening, Mzansi. Well, he doesn't think he's popular enough to go to or to take his organization to the union buildings, clearly. Mzwandile Ntinezo says, I now believe that the ANC is going to lose the 2024 elections. Their branches are high on very strong substance. They don't want renewal, and that clearly shows that they believe in lawlessness more than their electorate want. Electorate. What a shame. President CR, says Timen, is coming back. That much is almost a given. KZN should have gone with Mkhize on DP position. Mashatile SG, that would have been a strong slate. Madumecha says, ANC KZN puts Zweli on Treasurer General. He won't succeed on my ANC presidency. My question to Dr. Mkhize, says Mutende, is that what does he got in the bag that's going to come and change the life of SA people? We're no longer interested in names. We are interested in service delivery for the people. Well, none of these tweets seem to be giving him any chance. How do you think it's going to pan out in Mpumalelo? Want to put your neck on the block?
No, well, on the president one, I think that it will take a hell lot of trouble for Ramaphosa to be tripped, not to get it. And similarly, on the deputy president one, it seems to me that the majority of the pronouncements so far favor Paul Mashatile, although I think there's going to be a squabble at the conference around the issue of younger people as well as women representation. And I think there, people like Minister Mamoloko Kupai, she's been contesting. At least her branch in Soweto has nominated her for the deputy president's position to contest Paul Mashatile. So she may well end up maybe in the top 6. You never know. It will all depend on the bargaining. I saw a message the other day from the chairperson of the Northern Cape, Zamani Sol, who was saying that, the province is, facing an avalanche of people making calls, trying to lobby them to make a pronouncements one way or the other. And he was trying to say, well, I'm not going to be like the other provinces who will endorse this and that candidate. It's for the branches to decide. But that tells you the intensity of the campaign on the ground, because it's not even about a campaign for the top 6 positions. It's also people just wanting to get into the NEC. On a particular slate. We have never had so many slates being bandied about. So at the moment, it may be too early to conclude, but at least I think Ramaphosa has got 2 contenders. It's Nkosazana Dlamini Zuma and Zweli Mkhize, which, in my opinion, also splits the KZN a block. Maybe before the conference, there might be a decision for unity from KZN, and they'll go maybe with one candidate.
Probably the stronger of the two. We'll see how that pans out. Prof, a quick last word from you. Do you want to put your neck on the block as to what's going to happen, or who'll get it?
I agree on the point that Cyril Ramaphosa will be a very difficult candidate to beat, but we also know from experience that these conferences can come with surprises. We know, for example, from 2017, that there can be sudden last-minute clandestine up to a certain point alliances that can really throw around the apple cart, and we know there can be court challenges as we've already seen examples in the recent provincial and regional conferences, and I don't think those have been exhausted. And these are just two examples of conference tricks that can really change the dynamic. And in today's move by KwaZulu-Natal political executive of the ANC, we can see from that proposed slate that they're trying to pull together, that they are trying to build an alliance between four very powerful provinces, KwaZulu-Natal, Limpopo, Eastern Cape, and Gauteng. If they can get those provinces to speak with an approximate unity voice, and we also know that's also one of the conference tricks, that the voices of the provinces are not necessarily unanimous.
Okay.
But if they can bring in the majorities, vast majorities of those provinces, and other provinces also remain divided, then these provinces can really control the slate for an elective conference. They will have a majority of the delegates. Only a small proportion of other delegates are coming from the leagues and the provinces. And there can be a lot of influence over the overall agenda.
Prof, quick yes or no. Do you give a slate that has Dr. Nkosazana Dlamini Zuma at the top and with Jacob Zuma as chairman? Any chance? Yes? No?
No, my answer is a definite no. Jacob Zuma is absolutely confused by this power that he thinks he has given July 21. The fact that people are doing pro-religious Chinkanda. He's totally confused. He thinks that is real political power. It clearly is not.
Bumelelo, yes, no? Do you give that slate a chance?
I think Zuma and his lobbyists, they actually over-exaggerate his influence. He's no longer the Zuma of 2007. They must accept that. It's different now.
Let's leave it there. Let me thank both of you for coming through. Those my guests, Mubelo Mkhabela and Dr. Susan Boyce, and both of them authors of books on the ANC. You can actually search and read those books, especially going as we are to this ANC elective conference in December. But that's where we're going to leave this conversation. But we're going to end with a bit of breaking news. Another mine dam wall has collapsed at the troubled Jagersfontein mine in the Free State. Kopanong Mayor Xolani Tseletsele says the situation could have been as a result of earlier heavy downpours in the area. The water from the dam is flowing through the neighborhood of Charlesville. The R706 near the area has been closed. Motorists are advised to use the alternative gravel road to Forest Smith in order to get access to Jagersfontein. Police are on the scene redirecting traffic. Over 2 weeks ago, a mine dam wall, of course, you'll remember, collapsed in the area, leaving a trail of destruction there. We're hoping that the situation right now is actually nowhere near what it was the other week. For that would really mean that the community will be in further trouble. But SABC News will bring you more updates on this story as more details emerge. And that's our program for this evening. Do join us again tomorrow night, same time. Have a good night.